All right. Christ Am Disciple here. Hope everybody's doing okay. This is a very, very late night stream tonight, but I am happy still to share with you guys what I think we should do as a restore the Snyderverse community. And if others want to, you know, if others want to roll with us, even better. Dang, man, life is weird. So, man, this is so weird. Man, this camera's making me look weird, but hey, it is what it is. Get to it. So tonight, it's pretty late, but tonight we're gonna do the following. Okay. First of all, if you want to be a guest on this program, I know it's very late, so if somebody's up at this hour, great. If you want to be a guest, you can join, and you can chop it up with me. Uh, there's a link to coming onto the stream as a guest. Otherwise, you can just use the chat, talk through the chat, or you don't have to do anything actually. So how we're going to go through this is like this. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to share with you, as I always do, a piece of scripture, and then we'll go into ways in which we can have some fun while we campaign for the Snyderverse to be restored. Okay, so we're going to look at things like competitions. We're going to look at things like fundraising. We've been fundraising for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We're looking at hosting other SnyderCon like events, like Full Circle that happened this year. But we want one because Rebel Moon's coming up, and then on top of that, not only is Rebel Moon coming up, but also we have an event that's happening with where if you're campaigning for the Snyder Cut to see IMAX and cinemas, then you probably will want to. This is so bizarre. You probably would want to. You want to have a Snyder Cut, so motivate people. And then the last thing I would like to talk about is interviews with cast and crew from the Snyderverse movies, whether it's Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, if we can get her, or people behind the scenes, stunt coordinating crew, Jay Oliver, whatever, those people, right? Not just for the Snyderverse, but also the Army of the Deadverse, Rebel Moon that's upcoming. If we can get like people behind the scenes, that kind of thing, we can get scoops. Now, this is as a community we're doing this. There's different people who can contact Zack Snyder and they can get to him, but this is as a community we're talking. So it's not in isolation or me or any one of us necessarily doing this. All right. So, like I said before, if you want to be a guest on here, that's the link right there. I am Christ, I am Disciple. That's who I am. As you can see, hold on a second. As you can see right there, you see my name right now. Yep. All right. So we're gonna get into it. Let me start off with a piece of scripture tonight. Scripture boy, gotta hit you with some scripture. This is pretty much the same scripture I did for the other channel. It comes from Luke chapter 12, verses 49 to 53, and it goes like this. Jesus said, I have come to bring fire to the earth, and I wish that my task were already completed. There's a terrible baptism ahead of me, and I'm under a heavy burden until it's accomplished. Do you think I've come to bring peace to the earth? No, I've come to bring strife and division. From now on, families will be split apart. 3 in favor of me, 2 against, or the other way around. There will be divisions between father and son, be divisions between mother and daughter, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. So we're going to get to that. Give me a second. Let me just go do something I'm doing here. I was just washing some clothes. I just have to put them in the dryer. I'll be right back in 5, Okie dokie. Okie dokie. So now we're gonna get into uh we're gonna get into the scripture first. So the scripture is speaking about how in our journeys, uh, when you desire good, the more you walk that path, is the more you're going to find yourself separating yourself from other people. Even people close to you sometimes will turn against you for the principles that you tend to walk in. So in the case of Jesus, it's what he said. If you follow what he said and you keep on walking in the way he said, it's going to cause divisions, even within your family, sometimes within people, friends who used to be your friends, they'll start to separate from you. A lot of people start to separate from you. That's so true in the Christian walk. It's also true for a walk of people who are not even Christian. As you devote yourself more and more to something that is positive and good, and you keep on trying to do this good, you're going to become offensive to certain people. And people are going to lash out at you, and you'll be surprised who, and sometimes the people closest to you start to lash out at you. So that's what that scripture is about. And, we see it happening with Zack Snyder in Hollywood because, he's not following the status quo particularly. He has his own way of putting forward information, and it kind of makes people uncomfortable because they feel like it's exposing things. Let's get to, so that was scripture that we just covered. What does this have to do with us? Well, we are campaigning for restoring the Snyderverse. That's what our whole thing is. But throughout all of this, we could actually enjoy ourselves. And one of the things we were doing all along, and I tried to start doing this on Twitter, I hope people will eventually get to it, is competitions. And there's several different competitions we had. We had cosplay competitions, we've had art competitions, we've had music competitions, we've even had dramatization or drama competitions. And we can even have competitions for the best edit of, a sequence of stuff from Zack Snyder's different movies. We can all do that. I think competitions would be fun because we could raise money for AFSP. We could also have prizes for the winners. So I think competitions are a positive thing because all around it helps us to keep our creativity. It kind of keeps the movement alive. It also allows us to express ourselves and how we feel in positive ways, not negative ways, So that's one of the things I think we should do. In addition, as I said before, fundraising for AFSP National is a vital thing. We've raised over $1 million for that, and let's keep it going. Let's not stop there. Let's keep it going. The other thing I think we should do is, before the year is over, we should host another SnyderCon, something like Full Circle or something like, the SnyderCons that we had before. I think it's good because, one, Rebel Moon is coming around the corner, and two, you never know. Zack Snyder's Justice League might end up in cinemas, might end up in IMAX, and if that's the case, you want to kind of have like little watch-alongs of BVS, Man of Steel, all those kinds of things, discussing it, having more full discussions, and just enjoying ourselves talking on these things. It's always good to be positive. I've self-occupied saying positive things instead of arguing with people online and just being in a bunch of negativity, which does not help anybody. And of course, along those lines, interviews with people like, people who are associated with Man of Steel. Maybe it's not Henry Cavill. Maybe it's not Gal Gadot because they may be working. Maybe not. Maybe they'll have some time for interviews. You never know. Like I said before, somebody within the movement do this. Interviews with Henry Cavill, Amy Adams, Gal Gadot, Lawrence Fishburne, the whole roster, the whole 9 yards of the DCEU when Snyder was in charge and he had his vision. I'm talking Patty Jenkins with Wonder Woman, David Ayer with his air cut. Have little interviews with him. Have him online. Talk to him. Let him speak about his haircut. Ben Affleck speaking about the Batfleck movie. If we can get our hands on Ben Affleck, you know what I'm saying? But if not, we can get stunt teams behind the scenes, storyboarders, writers, whoever we can get, and just keep this thing alive by keep on having these interviews. The other thing I think that's important, of course, Jay Oliver recently said some stuff, which was really good. So that keeps things alive, you know what I'm saying? And again, we don't only have to be limiting it to the DCEU. We could talk about Army of the Dead, the different people who participated in that, the actors, the cast, the whole thing, just to delve into it and talk a little bit more about it. And then Rebel Moon, the upcoming movie, promote that, have maybe by us communicating so much, we might get an early pre-trailer or something, and we could broadcast it in SnyderCon. So this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, where it's very positive. It's a good thing to happen, and it's something that I think we should pursue as we're pursuing, seeing the Snyderverse restored. Now, I got one more thing to say, and then I can shut it down because nobody's really going to be here at this hour. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about is that the focus, right? We as fans need to focus on what is doable now, what's doable later, midterm, and what's doable in the distant future. So what's doable now? What's doable now is Zack Snyder's Justice League in IMAX. That can happen. That can happen now. The air cut can happen next year. Next year, the air cut can happen if the strike ends, because it's not much more to do on the air cut. Why do the air cut after Zack Snyder's Justice League? Because the financing for it, you want Zack Snyder's Justice League to make the money for the financing to finish off the air cut or whatever else you want to do. Next, after the air cut, I believe it makes sense to make the Batfleck movie. All of this in 2024, probably the end of 2024. And by the beginning of 2025, then you can have your sequel for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and there'll be a Superman movie there. Okay. Now, what happens after the sequel of Zack Snyder's Justice League? It's a great question. The sequel for Zack Snyder's Justice League after the Batman movie would therefore lead to a cycling in of the new DCU, sort of passing of the torch. I don't know if James Gunn is thinking about maybe coordinating that, kind of like what Universal has done, or Paramount, I can't remember Paramount or Universal, I think it's Universal, has done with the Transformer movies, where they sort of did they're doing a prequel sort of like right now. But here's the important point: continuity. You want to have continuity. You don't want to reboot. You want to have continuity. I was listening to James Gunn in an interview, and he was saying that DC has many different tones. And he says, well, the thing about DC is you got these superheroes, like these people with fantastic powers. That's the difference between that and the MCU. I want to say that, yes, DC, by and large, has a multiplicity of tones. Marvel, same thing. But I want to say that what gets people into the cinemas is the serious tone and the depth of DC. And this has been proven over time. And so if studios are just trying to experiment at this point in time and get lighter tones and stuff, lighter tone movies, That's cool, but it's going to cost them severely. So I would suggest very strongly that they look at DC and look at what works for DC. Let it work for DC first, and then you can try and do all those other experiments with the extra money you have. But at this point in time where Warner Brothers is kind of starved for cash and they're in debt, it doesn't make sense to go with something that doesn't work for DC right now. You know, so that's why I think that you got, you know, the Batfleck movie and so on, and then you connect. If you want to connect your new Superman movie to the Snyderverse, I think that would make sense. Especially it's coming out the same year with uh, Zack Snyder's Justice League Part 2. Maybe you could do Part 2 early in the year, Part 3 around summer, and maybe have the Superman movie at the end of the year. It's kind of like the reboot, and then you could just take it from there. My thing is, we still need a Cyborg movie because Cyborg was supposed to be in the Flash. That didn't happen. What's already gone is gone. We're not going to try and reinvent the wheel. We'll just roll with that and try and integrate it. Maybe it was in a different universe, but integrate it into the DCEU, where the Snyderverse is part of the DCEU, and work it from there. Yeah. So I wouldn't say after Zack Snyder's Justice League Part 3, I'm not gonna make any demands. I know we were supposed to have a Green Lantern movie. We were supposed to have a Cyborg movie. I still hope we get a Cyborg movie. I don't know if Ray Fisher would be the Cyborg. It could be, you know, they just reset the thing and go from there. But who knows? Who knows how it would go? It would be tremendous if we could get Ray Fisher a Cyborg movie. The thing I noticed about executives, though, is they have really poor taste in movies. Because I was just watching online where Greg Silverman was the person responsible for Zack Snyder's 300 being so successful. The studio and even the executive on the studio didn't buy into the idea. And then also we found out that Christopher Nolan, who did Insomnia, there was an executive who saw his Memento, believe this or not, this will boggle your mind, and thought Memento wasn't a good movie. He didn't like it. So because this executive didn't like it, Christopher Nolan was brought up to do Insomnia, the executive was blocking it. So this is how these studios work. It's about it, whether you please the executives or not. This is just so ass backwards. Like they don't seem to process that it's about the audience. It's not about you. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to, you know, you would think the people in the industry would want to run tests or stuff to find out, okay, does this work? No, these people don't know shit about the industry. It's so crazy, but it is what it is. So it's interesting how Christopher Nolan got to do Insomnia, and then from there, he was able to do the Batman movies with Warner Brothers. Sometimes I wonder what is wrong with these people. I guess they don't watch movies. I guess they don't care about movies. Greg Silverman cares about movies, and from what I've seen online, he is like the perfect guy to be actually heading DC at this point in time, you know. But he has Stampede Ventures, but he loves film. He really does. He loves film, and he's a big fan of film. You see him pushing out all these films and talking about film all the time. So, you know, it is what it is. But even though Barbie has kind of helped out Warner Brothers this year, because of course, Abdi and DeLuca is doing a fantastic job with the movies that they have to put out. I still think that the Snyderverse, you know, is the best way to go for DC. Now, you know, Blue Beetle got a little boost with Zack Snyder's tweet. But I think that by and large, I think Blue Beetle's still gonna flop. I think it's still gonna flop, which is sad because you know Blue Beetle was something on the cards. Warner Brothers had it on the cards for a while, as you know, also Booster Gold. The thing about it is this, right? Blue Beetle is supposed to be a little bit funny. Booster Gold is supposed to be a little bit funny, right? So the tone of the movies can be whatever they are. And, you know, DC's a thing where some of these directors, James Gunn even, could fit into the DC, you know, sequence of things. But you have to establish something. You have to go from the known to the unknown. You can't just present unknowns to people and they will enjoy it. And I think I was listening to a video and this video person was saying, well, you need to stick with what Gunn is doing and follow through with what Gunn is doing because you didn't do it with Zack Snyder. I'm like, dude, why would we follow through with what Gunn's doing if we just keep on getting flops? If the movies keep on flopping, why would I follow through with what Gunn is doing? What? The movie's actually flopping. That's the problem. Like, there's no money, there's no income. They're flopping. You understand? There's the difference. Zack Snyder's movies didn't flop. All right. So, I mean, you can't go wrong making sure the Snyderverse is a part of the DC. You can't go wrong. The problem what a lot of us as fans have is the trying to push away the Snyderverse while trying to embrace it by the studio. They don't want Zack Snyder there, but they're also trying to harness what he's done and make it sound like this is his universe, which is not true. It's like so blatantly, it's such a blatant lie. It's not. It's just terrible. So you don't want the guy there for reasons that make no sense because you don't know about movies. You're following the direction of a guy who's not a filmmaker. Then you got another guy from the other company that came across you thought would give you your salvation and what you wanted to see, not what the audience wanted to see. And that guy is not being able to deliver to the audiences. You know, it is what it is. I got 7 more minutes, so I'm gonna use those 7 minutes. So basically what I'm saying is best guy for the job is Zack Snyder. Put his movie into cinemas, which is what we should be pushing for. We should be pushing for the Air Cut, but that can be secondary. The Batfleck movie, that can be secondary because those two things are not going to happen now. We have a strike. We have even now VFX people are striking across by Marvel. So obviously, this is escalating. This is not de-escalating. So in a time like this, where movies are being frozen, movies are not being produced, you're going to have 2024 where a lot of backlog. So to loosen up the burden and make sure you have some cash, Zack Snyder Justice League. Let it see IMAX. Let it see cinemas. You need to push that. When the strike is over, if it ever gets over, the Air Cut, finish it off. Make the Batfleck movie. And then Justice League Part 2 and 3. It all depends on how the Snyder Cut performs in cinemas and IMAX, but it's really a great thing to do. I am very sleepy. You know, it's very late. It's 12:39 where I live, a.m. So I'm going to shut it down right here. But I just want to say to you guys, I hope and wish that you guys will have a great time. Don't give in to negativity. Don't be so negative. Try to be positive. And let's use this experience as a good one, a good journey. We know what to do. So let's get it done. So that's all I got for you guys tonight. I hope you guys have a good one. God bless you. Stay safe. Peace. I'm gone.